Imagine a scenario where your bank account is frozen because of your political beliefs, where the dollar is so inflated you have to carry around $10 trillion notes in your wallet to buy bread, or where the government monitors every transaction you make and automatically deducts taxes. The scenarios I just described are not far from reality. The current trajectory of fiscal policy in America and right here in Idaho threatens the liberties our founders fought so hard to secure. Also, on this week's episode of Fiscal Fridays, we're going to dive into these threats and how a new sound money policy agenda could preserve fiscal liberty for all Idahoans. The scenarios I just described at the top of our program today describe the harsh realities of millions who live in unfree societies throughout the world. Recall that it was in Canada just a few short years ago that truckers were protesting the overreach of the Canadian government during the pandemic. They fought against the tyrannical mandates for COVID-19 vaccines and other draconian measures of control. But the protest was shut down by the government when they froze the bank accounts of the protesters. This only demonstrated that the Canadian government amassed too much power to infringe on the natural rights of her citizens. Regarding inflation and overprinting money, Zimbabwe was famous for having the $10 trillion banknote. As the result of rampant inflationary policies of the nation's currency became so worthless that it had to be abandoned altogether in 2009. The final example is from China's implementation of a central bank digital currency. This cashless system allows the government to have intimate control over their citizens' bank accounts. It also opens the door for tracking transactions and creating programmable money. Idaho and America's track record on these issues is not looking good for individual liberty. Though it is true that Congress passed legislation in the House of Representatives to ban the Federal Reserve from pursuing a central bank digital currency, action has stalled in the Senate. This leaves the Federal Reserve to continue its study of the program and Americans vulnerable to its implementation. The Idaho legislature had the opportunity to protect Gem State residents from a central bank digital currency, but voted it down in a 30-40 vote last legislative session. The bill would have not only banned the use of CBDCs in government business, but imposed criminal penalties for state officials who violate that provision. It would have also protected the free market by providing protections for private digital currencies like Bitcoin. The governor has also decidedly stood against sound constitutional money. He vetoed a bill that would have guarded the state assets against rampant inflation of the dollar by granting the treasurer the option to hold reserves in physical gold and silver. He claims to have rejected the bill because the fiscal note was inaccurate. Not only is this not true, but the governor should have vetoed a lot more bills this last legislative session if he wanted to be consistent with that principle. Idahoans do have some reason to be optimistic going into the 2025 legislative session, however. Sound money is a topic that is seeing an increasing amount of spotlight lately. The legislature appears to have broken right after the primary election in May. For Republicans in particular, the party has adopted a strong stance against CBDCs and for Bitcoin protection in their party platform this month. Other good bills may make a resurgence this next legislative session. For example, Senate Bill 1314 may see a resurgence after a revised approach to the fiscal note. A CBDC ban may be front and center, and other legislation would make gold and silver legal tender as consistent with the U.S. Constitution. Protections for private digital assets from power-hungry regulators may also be featured on the legislative stage this coming year. In sum, the key threat to our liberties will come from the power of the purse. A government that can precisely regulate your ability to engage in commerce can control every aspect of your life. When IFF argues about fiscal policy and budgets, we are not merely haggling over dollars and cents. Money is a freedom issue, and we're here to engage in the fight. Thank you for taking the time to watch this week's episode of Fiscal Fridays. To continue to support the Idaho Freedom Foundation's message of liberty, please be sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you're curious about IFF's stance on sound money policy, please visit idahofreedom.org/soundmoney2024 to learn more.